They didn't clear your name because they believed in you. They cleared it because they had no choice. For 5 years, the most powerful law enforcement agency in the world followed your every move. The FBI, not local police, not some online troll. The same organization that dismantles global syndicates, tracks foreign spies, and puts warlords in handcuffs, turned all their weapons on you. Not because you were guilty, but because your very existence is a threat. Not to the law, but to their illusion of control. They watched, they listened, they searched for dirt and came up empty. And now, after years of hunting, they know the truth. You were never the problem. You were the proof. Proof that someone can walk through the fire unburned. Proof that the system can't define everyone. You don't fit the mold. You were never supposed to. They weren't investigating a criminal. They were trying to put chains on something cosmic. But how do you arrest a storm? How do you silence a frequency that was never tuned to their station? Let's be clear. They weren't fighting you. They were fighting the universe itself. Because the universe puts something in you that scares them. Before we go deeper, hit like. Subscribe, not for numbers, for the mission. When you do, this message travels to more of us. It tells the algorithm that the chosen ones are waking up, that this signal can't be blocked. And every new person that hears this becomes one more node in the network they couldn't shut down. Now back to it. You didn't apply to be chosen. You didn't sign up for this. You were built for it. And when the universe builds something, it makes sure it lasts. The power in you, it's not loud, it's not flashy, it doesn't need headlines, it's steady. It's terrifying to people who rely on noise and control. That's why they sent agents, not answers. That's why they surveilled instead of served. That's why they turned your life into a case file, because they thought pressure would break you. But they didn't realize pressure refines chosen ones. 5 years of searching, and what did they find? A solid wall, no leaks, no weakness, no guilt. Just light, just purpose, just proof that you were never one of them. They don't clear your name and walk away. No, they clear your name and walk away afraid. Because now they know you're not touchable, you're not moldable, you're not theirs. They tried to make you question yourself, tried to isolate you, tried to bury you in paranoia. But the real mistake, they thought you were alone. You never were. You were in alignment with the same force that holds galaxies in place, the same force that put a target on your back because it knew you could take it. And you did. The chosen ones aren't here to play along. We're here to break the board. You don't need validation from a badge or a courtroom. The FBI just spent 5 years proving your purity to themselves and failed to make you fold. That scares them more than anything. So stop dimming your light. Stop doubting your instincts. Stop thinking the silence means you're forgotten. The silence was your proving ground. And now you've passed the test. You're not under investigation anymore. You're under watch, because they know exactly what's coming next. And before we go further, pause for a second. Think about what it really means that the FBI spent 5 years dissecting your life and found nothing. That's not just clearance, that's confirmation. You are not who they said you were. You are who they feared you were. And if you're still here, still listening, still breathing through everything they threw at you, That means you're built different. Drop the number 77 in the comments if you feel that truth sinking in. This next part isn't for the curious, it's for the ones who know. Now lock in, because it's time to go deeper. Number 1, when the devil watches and finds no dirt. They didn't stalk you for safety. They stalked you in hopes you'd slip. But the real slip was theirs, when they realized the one they hunted was the one protected by the universe itself. For 5 long years, they circled you like vultures waiting for weakness. They ran your name through systems that were never built to understand someone like you. They sat in dark rooms behind screens, whispering about you in coded language. They weren't guarding the world from you. They were guarding their illusion of order from the reality of your presence. Because if you were innocent, then everything they stood on began to shake. You weren't under investigation. You were under observation. Not because you posed a threat, but because your existence defied their blueprint. The FBI didn't just investigate you, they tried to decode something that was never meant for their understanding. You are not a glitch. You are not an error. You are the exception that breaks their rules. And when a system designed to catch criminals finds nothing, what does that say about the system? That white van outside your home? Not delivering mail. The strange repeated run-ins at the grocery store, not coincidence. That eerie feeling of being watched, real. But it wasn't paranoia, it was confirmation. They saw you, every day, every move. And still, they found nothing to use, no dirt, no weakness, no guilt. And here's what you need to realize now. They weren't just looking for crimes. They were hoping to find cracks in your light. Because your light exposed their shadows, you've probably asked yourself, why me? Why would they spend so much time, so many resources, just to come up empty? Because the moment the universe marks someone as chosen, the world takes notice, especially the parts of it built to suppress light. They weren't chasing you, they were chasing control. They sensed that something inside you couldn't be tamed, couldn't be programmed. Something that resisted the system silently, simply by existing. You were never playing their game, and that's what made you dangerous. They were playing with the system, bending its eyes toward you, hoping it would make you fold. But instead, it confirmed the truth. You are innocent. You are untouchable. You are chosen. Now, let me talk to you, chosen one, because some of you still question yourselves, still whisper doubts in the silence. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe they weren't watching me. Maybe it wasn't that serious. Stop it. You insult the universe when you pretend this wasn't real. You insult your own strength when you act like this was coincidence. There are no coincidences in the lives of the chosen, only signals. Every eye that lingered too long, every stranger who knew too much, every pattern that played on repeat like a silent siren. It was all part of the process. The crucible. The pressure chamber where your innocence was tested and proven under scrutiny, even you didn't ask for. You've lived under an invisible spotlight, but now that light shines through you, not on you. And to those who tried to play gods with your fate, who installed cameras, hacked accounts, tailed you in the name of protection while secretly hoping to catch you slipping, they didn't find a suspect. They found a symbol, a living example that being watched doesn't mean you're guilty, that being tracked doesn't mean you're trapped. They watched in hopes of finding weakness, Instead, they documented your endurance. That's the power of being chosen. You don't have to fight for proof. Your life becomes the evidence. Your survival becomes the case file. Your peace becomes the punch they never see coming. And here's the real sting. They were never the hunters. They were the test. Sent not to break you, but to prove you. Because when the universe chooses someone, it doesn't just hand out gifts. It clears the battlefield. It aligns time and timing. It places even the enemy in position, not to defeat you, but to validate you. And they did. With 5 years of resources, with elite agents, with surveillance tools, with silent steps and sleepless nights. And yet, you're still here. So why then do you still carry doubt? Stop cursing your isolation. It wasn't punishment, it was protection. Stop mourning the silence. It wasn't absence, it was alignment. Stop fearing the eyes. They were only allowed to see what the universe wanted them to see. And remember this, the enemy had full access to your life and still couldn't write a sentence against you. Do you realize how rare that is? That's not luck. That's design. The universe does not waste energy. It doesn't shield people without purpose. It doesn't hide truth in plain sight unless that truth is meant to shake foundations. You didn't escape the system. The system was forced to bow in your presence. And that's what truly haunts them. That everything they use to break people, pressure, exposure, isolation, scrutiny, failed to bend you. You are what they never prepared for. Someone who stands clear after the storm. Someone who never needed to fight for innocence because it was never lost. So next time you feel the weight of doubt trying to sneak back in, remember this. The FBI already did the deep dive. They ran the simulations. They had the data. And all of it pointed to one truth. You are chosen. And they know it. And now that you know they know, walk like it. Move like it. Shine like it. Because the only thing more dangerous than a system that fears you is a chosen one who finally understands their own power. Number 2, the case. So clean, it cut their hands. They thought they were building a case against you, but the deeper they dug, the more it became a vault, sealing your innocence shut. This wasn't a shallow background check. This was full-blown surveillance at a federal level. Movements tracked by satellites, conversations recorded through every tapped line, messages captured in cold silence. But here's the twist that broke them. All that effort, all that manpower, all that technology, and not a single crack they could exploit. They didn't build a case to convict you. They built a fortress to protect you from the lies, from the slander, from the whispers designed to rot your name. Understand this. The system never stops unless it's forced to. So if they did stop, it wasn't because they wanted to. It's because the data betrayed their agenda. Every manipulated scene, every false claim, every attempt to twist your story into a scandal backfired. The very surveillance they weaponized against you became your defense. The irony? The most powerful intelligence body in the country just documented your innocence in high definition. That's what happens when someone tries to weaponize the system against a chosen one. The universe flips the script. What they thought would be your downfall became your digital testimony. A time-stamped archive that proves who you are and exposes who they are. They weren't building a case. They were building your armor. Do you know how wild that is? They watched every move, listened to every word, and now they know exactly what you are. Someone they can't break, someone they can't twist, someone who walked through fire with a clean soul and unshakable purpose. They tried to set you up. That's not conspiracy. That's not paranoia. That's fact. You felt it, didn't you? Suddenly, people around you started acting different. Conversations felt staged. Moments felt off. You walked into rooms that already carried your name in the air, like ghosts had arrived before you. It wasn't in your head, it was by design. They planted traps, situations designed to make you look volatile, unstable, questionable. They put people in your path to bait reactions, to spark conflict, to build a false narrative. But here's where they failed. You didn't take the bait. You stood still, watched, waited, refused to give them what they wanted. And in that stillness, the universe recorded everything. Every lie they whispered about you, logged. Every fake friend who played both sides, tracked. Every moment you were pushed toward the edge and still didn't fall, documented. You were never paranoid. You were under pressure. And instead of folding, you left footprints in concrete. The agents watching you weren't just observers. Over time, they became unwilling witnesses to something rare. Truth that couldn't be broken. They saw you stripped of comfort, stripped of support, isolated and provoked. Yet still calm. Still precise. Still unshaken. And in their silence, you earned something no one can fake. Respect. Even if they don't admit it publicly, they felt it because they've seen people lie, snap, run, fold. But they never saw anyone walk through a psychological war this intense and stay clean. That's the power of being chosen. You don't need to scream innocence. You exist as proof of it. You don't need to beg for trust. You walk like someone whose name has already been cleared in the highest places. They built a digital case file expecting to find guilt and ended up constructing a living shrine to your strength. And now all the evidence they collected sits in silence, a silent monument to their failure and your endurance. A sealed vault that says, "We watched them for 5 years, and they never gave us a reason to act." So next time you question yourself, next time you wonder, did I really survive that? Was it really that serious? Remember this. The system put you under its microscope, hoping to dissect you. But instead, they found a being they couldn't define. The case is closed, but what it revealed has just begun. And for your enemies, that's the worst outcome of all. Because not only did they fail to destroy you, they accidentally confirmed exactly who you are. Number 3, they couldn't kill you, so they tried to kill your name. When they couldn't reach your soul, they went after your circle. And when they couldn't break your truth, they poisoned your image. This wasn't gossip. This was war. Silent, targeted, engineered. You lived it. You felt the shift. One day, people laughed with you. The next, they looked at you like they were seeing a stranger or a threat. Friends didn't just disappear, they transformed. Cold stares replaced connection. Polite silence replaced loyalty. And you didn't imagine it. It was too calculated for coincidence. This was a social takedown, and it wasn't random. You were marked, and the goal was isolation, psychological exile. They couldn't prove you guilty in the eyes of the law, so they tried to make you guilty in the court of public opinion, friends, family, community. You felt it when people pulled away for no reason, when familiar faces carried unfamiliar doubt, when whispers spread faster than you could explain yourself. Rumors multiplied as if pushed by an algorithm, accusations crafted with surgical precision, carefully placed screenshots, twisted narratives, and evidence shared in secrecy. But behind it all, silence. No one came to you directly. No one looked you in the eye and asked for your truth. Because that wasn't the point. The goal wasn't clarity, it was contamination. This was not social decay, it was social sabotage. And what they didn't count on, what they never saw coming, was that the same invisible forces they thought would protect them were documenting every move they made. Because while they were orchestrating your downfall behind curtains, the universe was writing it all down in ink. And so was the system. Every rumor traced, every message backed up, every phone call logged, every manipulated post screen captured by people they didn't even know were watching. The same system they tried to exploit, it turned into a mirror. And when the time comes, they'll be forced to look into it. They thought they could assassinate your character and walk away clean. They didn't know your character wasn't built in public. It was built in the dark, forged in the silence, tested under surveillance. They didn't just come for your name, they came for your identity. But chosen ones don't lose themselves to slander. You may have bled, you may have screamed in private, but you never surrendered. And that is what terrifies them most. See, they underestimated the quiet strength in you. They thought social exile would break you, but it only refined your focus. They thought silence meant defeat, but silence became your strategy. They thought you'd fight back in desperation, but you evolved in isolation. They gave you time away from noise, and the universe used that space to elevate you. Let's call it what it really was: a smear campaign disguised as concern. People you trusted were given just enough dirt to doubt you, and most of them didn't even question the source. They played their part. Willingly or not, they became pawns. And when your name came up, they lowered their voice. Not because you were dangerous, but because deep down they knew something bigger was going on. They felt the current, but couldn't explain it. So instead, they watched. And now, let them keep watching. Because when all the lies dissolve, and they will, they'll have to sit with the truth they helped bury. And you'll still be standing. Because while they assassinated your image, they proved your identity. You survived a psychological purge. That's not small. That's legendary. Chosen ones are not made in peace. They're revealed in chaos. So stop mourning the loss of connections. Stop looking back at who turned. That was their test, not yours. And they failed it. You passed all of yours. You were watched, followed, doubted, attacked, and left out in the cold. But now you're still here, still breathing, and most importantly, cleared. Let them speak. Let them whisper. Let them scroll through their own guilt. Because the truth has a funny way of coming back, and when it does, it won't knock. It'll crash through the front door with 5 years of documented receipts. The social assault didn't break you. It confirmed you. Because if your name alone could shake a room that hard, Imagine what your presence is about to do. And this time, no one's going to look away. Number 4. The internet never lies. It just waits. You weren't paranoid. You were ahead of schedule. You didn't see ghosts. You saw patterns, and the patterns don't lie. They thought they were smart. They thought they could move in silence, spread rumors in the dark, whisper behind screens, and never get caught. They forgot one thing. Every key they pressed became a timestamp. Every lie left a fingerprint. Every attack had a pattern. This wasn't gossip gone wild. This was a digital war, a quiet assassination through pixels and group chats designed to erase you without ever confronting you. They didn't come to your face because cowards never do. They came through screens, through fake concern, through carefully crafted narratives designed to circle your name like sharks. But here's what makes this moment dangerous for them. They were being watched too. The same eyes that tracked your steps tracked theirs. The same system they thought they were manipulating had already flipped the lens. The FBI wasn't just watching you, they were logging them, documenting who contacted, who, when, and how often, mapping message patterns, tone, timing, and most importantly, the identical language that kept showing up like a glitch in the system. That's not gossip. That's a blueprint. A digital trail left by amateurs who thought they were untouchable. What they didn't realize, they weren't spreading chaos. They were signing their names on the timeline of your vindication. You noticed it, didn't you? The moment you gained ground, made a breakthrough, or stepped into something bigger, boom, here came the smear. Like clockwork. The timing was too precise, too clean to be organic. That wasn't intuition talking. That was pattern recognition. And you were right to feel it. Those weren't coincidences. They were triggers. You winning triggered their desperation. But here's the twist that burns the worst for your enemies. All of it. Every post, every DM, every screenshot, every copied and pasted lie has been archived. Not just by the authorities, but by the universe itself. They thought they could cover their tracks in group chats and burner accounts. They forgot that the digital world never forgets. You don't delete energy, you just delay the consequences. Even the language they used, tracked, mirrored, recycled from one mouth to another like they were reading from a shared script. The same phrasing, the same phrases, the same twisted version of you passed around like a virus. The investigators saw it. They highlighted it. And when the time comes, they'll bring receipts. You were the subject of the lie, but now you're the center of the truth. Let's speak to your doubt for a second, because I know it's still whispering. You asked yourself, why do I feel like everyone's turning at the same time? Why does it feel like I'm being set up? Why does success feel like a target instead of a reward? That wasn't paranoia. That was your inner radar pinging off manipulation that hadn't yet been proven. It's easy to question your instincts when the world gaslights you with fake kindness and scripted betrayals. But your discernment, that was your defense mechanism. You were reading energy. You were decoding digital smoke signals. And while they were trying to frame your intuition as instability, you were simply tuned in. Your inner knowing was screaming the truth before the evidence could speak. And now, the evidence won't stop talking. You are being cleared in real time, digitally, spiritually, factually. What they sent to destroy you became a trail that condemns them. The text, threads, The secret forums, the comments on anonymous accounts, the whispers that all came from the same voice wearing different masks. It's all part of your case now. And here's the most brutal part of it all. They used your digital presence to try to trap you, to destroy you from a distance. But now your digital absence speaks louder. You didn't fight back with chaos. You didn't dirty your hands. You stood still, and now the data defends you. That's the true power of being chosen. You don't chase justice. Justice gravitates toward you. You don't have to expose liars. The truth turns their whispers into megaphones. You don't collapse under pressure. You archive it. So now, let them sit with it. Let them scroll back. Let them reread their own words and pretend they meant nothing. Because the digital trail is no longer a trap. It's a mirror. And the reflection is getting louder. Every lie they typed was a confession. Every message was an entry in your book of proof. And every time they clicked send, they helped seal their own fate. You are not the accused. You are the evidence of what they tried and failed to destroy. Number 5. Every click was a confession, just not yours. They tried to drown you in silence, not knowing you were leaving a trail of truth behind with every keystroke. You were never allowed to explain. Your voice was shut out, twisted, ignored. But your fingers kept speaking. For 5 years, they left behind what your mouth wasn't given permission to say. Every email you sent, begging for clarity, every long text you wrote, trying to understand what was happening, every quiet search at 2 a.m. Why are my friends turning on me? Am I being watched? How to survive targeted defamation. All of it was recorded, not just by algorithms or search engines, but by something far more powerful, the silent eyes building your case behind the curtain. You didn't know it at the time. You were trying to survive, not testify, but every message, every post, every deleted draft became a breadcrumb on the path to your redemption. And now, it's not just a trail, it's a map, etched in digital stone, showing the world exactly who you were, what you went through, and how clean you remained through it all. While you were typing in pain, they were plotting in arrogance. They laughed in group chats, they shared screenshots, they traded tactics and timed their attacks. They celebrated when you grew quiet, when you pulled back, when you looked like you were finally folding. They thought you were weak. They mistook your retreat for surrender. But in reality, every time you went silent, you were being documented, not as a failure, but as a target, as someone under siege. And now, their clicks are evidence too. Every group chat, every message chain, every shared doc, every little joke sent in private didn't disappear. It glows in the dark, marked with timestamps and user IDs. The same tools they use to scheme behind screens. That's what's going to bury their credibility. Because the system didn't stop watching once they cleared you. No, the real surveillance turned toward them once the system saw what you were really dealing with. And what did they find? They found receipts. They found coordination, not coincidence. They found language repetition, not organic conversation. They found planned disinformation campaigns, not random rumors. Your attackers didn't just spread lies, they synchronized them. And that was their fatal mistake. They wanted to appear chaotic, unpredictable, viral. But they moved too perfectly. They aligned too cleanly. And to investigators who've spent years tracking cartels, foreign agents, and criminal networks, That kind of precision is a red flag screaming organized intent. Meanwhile, you were writing from the heart, hurting out loud, confused but never cruel, seeking answers, not revenge. And that's what made your clicks undeniable. Because while their digital trail exposed guilt, yours proved humanity. It's one thing to survive an emotional storm. It's another to walk out of it with data that clears your name. So let's break it down for what it really is. Every email you sent trying to explain yourself, that was evidence. Every text where you begged someone to tell you the truth, that was evidence. Every post you wrote and deleted, thinking maybe it was too much, that was evidence too. Not because you had something to prove, but because you were speaking from truth. Your persecutors never thought the light would flip on. They thought they could outpace karma. But the digital world has no mercy. It sees everything. It forgets nothing. And it doesn't care how many people they fooled in real life. Online, it's all trackable. Now those private jokes they made about your pain, public. The moments they cheered when you seemed to break, archived. The exact timestamps of their fake concern sent right before the next attack, exposed. Every click, every character, every comma, they built a case against themselves in real time. They just didn't realize the mirror they were typing into would eventually shatter. So when you look back at those moments of despair, when you were questioning if you were imagining the whole thing, remember this: you were never imagining, you were witnessing. And now the world is catching up to what your soul already knew. You are innocent. And they don't just know it, they digitally confirmed it. The trail is real, the record is permanent, and your silence, your pain, your restraint, it told a story louder than any accusation ever could. Now, let them try to run from what they wrote, because every click was a confession, and the only thing that vanished was their illusion of control. Number 6. When the glitches spoke louder than the people. The silence of your phone was louder than their noise. The tech didn't fail you, it revealed them. You remember those strange glitches, don't you? The text that never got delivered. The call that dropped the moment you started telling the truth. The email that somehow landed in someone's spam folder, despite being sent 100 times before, with no issue. The post you poured your heart into, reaching a fraction of your usual audience, buried before it could breathe. You thought it was just bad luck, a faulty signal, an error in the algorithm. It wasn't. That wasn't the system glitching. That was the system recording. Every dropped call was logged. Every intercepted message was traced. Every silent moment where your truth was muted became another data point in your defense. The tech didn't betray you. It testified for you. Your devices were never just tools. They were portals. Digital windows through which investigators and higher forces were watching everything play out. Not because you were a threat, but because what was being done to you had to be preserved. They tried to hide the war in silence. But tech doesn't lie. It doesn't care who has the louder voice. It only cares about what happened. And what happened to you wasn't random. It was calculated, strategic, timed. You noticed, didn't you? You spoke truth online, and suddenly your engagement dropped to near zero. You tried to explain yourself. and your screen froze. You tried to defend your name, and your account got flagged, while your attackers kept posting freely. That wasn't coincidence. That was interference. But here's where it turns. Every one of those moments, every blip, every unexplained error was tracked. Your persecutors thought they were clever. They used burner accounts, fake IPS VPNs, anonymous DMS. They thought they could strike from the shadows. But shadows leave fingerprints in the digital world. The DDoS attacks when you tried to tell your story. Logged. The backdoor login attempts. Traced. The fake profiles used to stalk and bait you. All catalogued, all connected, all preserved. And the people behind them identified. This wasn't just surveillance. This was preservation. You weren't just being protected in real time, you were being documented in silence. Every block they placed between you and your audience, every tactic they used to choke your voice, became another nail in the coffin of their plan. They thought they were muting you, but really, they were highlighting themselves. Tech is cold. It doesn't take sides. It doesn't operate on emotion. But when weaponized against the innocent, it becomes a mirror, one that reflects everything. You may not have seen it at the time. You may have questioned yourself, wondered if you were overreacting. Maybe my Wi-Fi is bad. Maybe the post just wasn't that good. Maybe I'm just imagining things. You weren't. Your gut was right. Your intuition wasn't paranoia, it was advanced perception. The universe was whispering to you in the code, and the system was taking notes. Because the truth is this: when you're chosen, you're not just being watched by your enemies, you're being witnessed by something much bigger, something that never needs to shout, because it knows the evidence will eventually scream on its own. And now that evidence is in the hands of people who know exactly what to do with it. So what now? Now they know the story didn't just happen on the surface. It unfolded in the code. It happened in metadata, in server logs, in admin dashboards, in security flags. While your attackers were laughing at your silence, they were being recorded. While they were mocking you for talking to shadows, those shadows were filing reports. Now, every failed message is a receipt. Every error is an entry. Every moment of digital silence is a roar waiting to be unmuted. They tried to erase you through the tech, but the tech remembered. You don't need to yell your innocence. The system already has the proof. The trail is burned in the data, forever out of reach from edits, deletions, or denials. And when the truth rises, and it won't come gently. It'll come with cold, hard code and undeniable timestamps. Tech doesn't lie. And now, it's ready to speak. Number 7. They couldn't break you, so they tried to starve the mission. When they couldn't stop your voice, they went for your wallet. When they couldn't touch your light, they tried to cut your power. Let's talk about the war behind the scenes, the one they hoped would never be traced, not the one in your inbox or your phone, but the one that hit where it hurts most, your finances. You noticed it, the strange job interviews that went great, until suddenly they didn't. The emails that never came. We've decided to go in a different direction. Messages that made no sense, especially after they'd already called you a top candidate. The contracts that were ready to sign, only to vanish into thin air with no explanation. This wasn't bad luck. This was sabotage. Investigators saw it. They traced the timing. They followed the money, or rather, followed how it stopped flowing. They watched as real, legitimate opportunities were shut down behind closed doors. Watched how your name, your brand, your identity was flagged, questioned, and passed through shadowy filters not made public. Let's be clear, this was financial warfare. The kind that's almost impossible to prove unless someone's watching everything. And someone was. They logged it all. The stalled payments, the processing errors, the suspicious flags on bank activity that made no sense, financial holds that had no grounding in protocol, delays in funds clearing, cards deactivated at the worst moments, PayPal accounts locked, business payments frozen, loans mysteriously denied without cause. They thought they were clever, hiding behind security checks and risk assessments. But their patterns gave them away. The timing wasn't just suspicious, it was synchronized. Every time you gained traction, tried to level up, moved toward financial independence, bam, here came the interference. Let's not sugarcoat it. They wanted you broke. Because a chosen one with resources is dangerous. They hoped the stress would eat you alive, that you'd cave under the pressure, that you'd start making desperate moves so they could finally paint you as unstable. But instead of breaking, you endured, quietly, stronger, smarter. And your endurance, it got noticed. Because that's the kind of resilience you can't fake. The kind that doesn't show up in bank balances, but bleeds through in behavior. You didn't beg. You didn't spiral. You didn't give them the reaction they were counting on. You adapted. They took from you, and you created more. They blocked the road, and you built another. They tried to starve your path, but you fed off the pressure. That's the mark of the truly chosen. You don't just survive sabotage, you grow in it. And let's not forget the ultimate irony here. The tech they used to cripple you financially, it documented every move they made. They left behind a digital graveyard full of blocked transactions, tampered communication trails, unauthorized flags, and failed manipulations. All of it pointing back to a coordinated effort by people too arrogant to realize their steps were being traced in real time. The same system they tried to weaponize against you. It became your witness. And now that witness is speaking. Investigators now have 5 years' worth of data, not just the fact that financial interference happened, but who triggered it, when, and why. The conversations that happened behind boardroom doors. The emails that warned potential partners away from you. The slander whispered in private while smiling in public. All of it logged. All of it tied to names. So when you start to question yourself, when you wonder why things just wouldn't move forward, why doors slammed shut without reason, why your money never flowed like it should, remember this. It was never your fault. It was never incompetence. It was never bad timing. It was intentional. But also remember, they failed. Because here you are, still standing, still focused, still chosen. And now the story is no longer hidden behind silence, it's laid bare in documents, bank records, logs, transcripts, and timelines. And the best part? They made you look unstable. But now their manipulation is officially unstable, legally exposed, digitally traced, and completely out of their control. You didn't fold. You didn't chase breadcrumbs. You didn't sell out for comfort. You stayed the course, and because of that, you own the record. They couldn't bankrupt your spirit. They couldn't repossess your destiny. And now, they can't stop the truth from paying you back with interest. Number 8. Setups in disguise, and you still stayed solid. They baited the trap. You walked through it like it wasn't there, because real integrity doesn't flinch for performance. Let's talk about the setups, the strange people, the odd energy, the moments that made no sense at the time but haunt you in hindsight. You felt it in your bones. That awkward offer, that overly friendly neighbor, that client whose project shifted like a shadow every time you tried to get clarity. That wasn't chance. That wasn't poor luck. That was a test. Orchestrated encounters, social pressure cookers, little scenes scripted just for you, set in motion not by fate, but by people with agendas. Some came from your enemies. Others came from those watching them. They wanted to see what you'd do when no one was officially watching. Would you cut corners? Would you take the bait? Would you snap? Would you sell out for a shortcut or compromise your values under stress? They were trying to frame you, not with a camera, but with situations. Remember the stranger who accidentally spilled coffee on your laptop, then hung around far too long, asking odd questions and offering help that felt a little too intentional? That wasn't clumsiness. That was a proximity probe, a way to get close, a cover story for access. What about the job offer that looked great until the requirements kept changing, becoming more irrational by the hour? That wasn't just bad management, it was a psychological pressure test. Or the long-time neighbor who, out of nowhere, wanted to become your best friend after years of little more than a wave and a head nod. That wasn't just a shift in personality, that was infiltration, disguised as interest. And the wild part, you passed every one of those tests. Not because you knew they were tests, but because who you really are doesn't crack under pressure. You stayed calm when others would have lashed out. You held your line when others would have folded. And more importantly, you stayed true when no one was clapping for it. Because integrity doesn't need an audience. What your persecutors never expected was this: that you'd remain consistent no matter who entered the room or what they were hiding behind their smile. They bet everything on you reacting, messing up, snapping just once. But you didn't. And now every encounter they designed to trap you has become evidence that proves who you truly are. Here's the twist they didn't see coming. While some of these people were sent to bait you, others were sent to study you, not by the enemy, by the investigators, by the very ones tasked with determining whether you were a threat or a target. And guess what they saw? Calm, strength, composure, control. They threw chaos in your path, and you walked through it like you already knew the truth would win. Because you did. And let's be honest, it wasn't easy. You doubted yourself. You second-guessed people. You wondered why things felt off all the time. Why your energy screamed, "Something's not right," even when faces smiled back. You weren't being paranoid. You were being monitored. Your instincts weren't broken. They were heightened. That unease you felt in certain conversations, that was your soul recognizing something your eyes couldn't yet prove. But now the truth is out. You were being tested at every angle, financially, emotionally, socially, and personally. And these orchestrated encounters were some of the most precise tools used to break you. Only you didn't break. Even when you were tired, even when you didn't know what was going on. Even when you felt the setup but didn't have the facts, you still moved with integrity, still responded with discernment, still held back when others would have lashed out. That kind of strength, that kind of restraint, you can't fake it, you can't manufacture it. That's why they fear you, because even when you didn't know the script, you refused to play their role. So now, all those fake scenarios, all those staged moments, all those little traps they set, they've become proof. Proof that the real danger was never you, it was the obsession to make you look like something you're not. You weren't performing for them. You were being documented by the universe. And the record shows. You stayed clean, you stayed solid, you stayed chosen. Now, let them explain that. And now, as the full picture sharpens, the truth is undeniable. They watched, they tested, they plotted, and still you remained untouched. Not because you were lucky, but because you were built for this. The FBI didn't find guilt. They found proof of purpose. You are the living evidence of what it means to be chosen. So, if this message hit your spirit, like and subscribe to keep this truth moving. Drop the number 77 in the comments if you're standing in your light, and share this with another chosen one who needs the reminder. They know you're innocent, and they were never ready for you.